Last week I showed a video of some brand new 2024 Lasko 3733s, and I mentioned in that video that I purchased those to trade for some vintage box fans. This is one of those vintage box fans. This is a 1999 Lasko 3733, one of the ones that's actually really good. So this came from it's going to remain an undisclosed location. We'll just call it a private estate sale. And within that house, there was a tremendous amount of new old stock equipment of all different types. This was, I guess it was probably never used up until this year. The homeowner had this out in the house. It was being used, but I don't think this has more than a couple days of use on it at most. It's perfectly mint all around. No dust anywhere. The motor is completely clean. Take a look inside there. There's no dust. It looks like it came off the assembly line yesterday. The feet are missing, of course, but that's just standard. It's in perfect condition. Paint's in great shape, or as great as it ever was. There's the informations, which are pretty much invisible. The date code is in fact 1999 to 2000. 2.2 amps. There's a little bit of like bird feathers there. This was next to a bird cage, so that's what that is. It's been used. It might have been used a handful of times, but it's pretty much new. It's in like new condition. Here's the plug. This is pre-fused plug debacle. You can see the prongs are really not worn out at all. Probably was only plugged in and out once. Handle's still good. Switch is still good. The only thing that's wrong with it is the whole top is like dented down, which is kind of a weird problem to have, but that should be able to be rectified. Actually bent quite a bit. You can see the whole handle is like all messed up there, so we'll have to fix that. And we'll also have to fix the motor, because like many of these at this point in time, it doesn't run properly, and I can't provide any kind of explanation why. It's definitely not high usage, because this has not been used much. Let's plug it in and we'll just observe what happens. So right now we're testing at 116.8 volts. It's a little bit low because probably everybody on the street has the air conditioner running. Let's go over to amps and we'll start it up on low. Now usually the problem with these is the medium speed goes out. On this one, I think all three speeds are running kind of slow. This is below spec, and I mean I know these fans probably better than anybody else, because this is what I grew up with. We had three of these in the family. There was one in my house, one in my grandparents' house, one in my uncle's house. I know what these things sound like, and this does not sound correct at all. It sounds sluggish to me. That's 1.03 the amps, 88 the watts. The power factor is 0.73. So now let's go to the medium. That is extremely slow. That's kind of more like what the low should be. That's 1.41 the amps, 122 the watts, with a power factor of 0.74. Now let's go to the high. That's about where the medium should be. That's 2.03 the amps, 184 the watts, with a power factor of 0.78. So it's running horrible. The bearings don't seem overly stiff. Could they need service? Perhaps. Certainly coasting for long enough. It's very confusing to me because there's no capacitor to drift. Right now, if this was a PSC motor and it sat for 25 years and then it didn't work properly, that I can understand because the capacitor could spoil. This is a shaded pole motor. There's nothing electrically to go wrong. What's happening? Is the copper deteriorating in the windings? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The one that I have and the one that my grandfather has, one that my uncle has, they all work perfectly fine still, and they've all been in regular service for the last 25 years. Now we have one that sat for 25 years, or presumably sat for 25 years, and it doesn't work. I think this is the worst I've seen of the Marco motors. I've encountered a bunch of those Marco motors that will work perfectly fine on low and work perfectly fine on high, but don't work properly on medium. That I've seen a bunch of times. I think this is the only one I've seen where all three speeds are messed up. So, I don't get it. I don't even know what to do to it. There's nothing to do. It's a basic shaded pole motor. Either it works or it doesn't. When I met Tori at the fan meet this year, this actually came up and we had a conversation about these motors, and we kind of said the same thing. If you service them, put oil in the bearings, it seems to work properly again, but it just doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. It's weird. So we'll oil this. We'll do a full service on the bearings, clean them out, put fresh oil in, put oil in the wicks, put oil on the sleeve bearing surface, put oil on the shaft, give it the best possible bearing scenario, and let's see what happens. I almost want to take the shell from the one that I have that works properly and put this stator inside that shell and see what happens, because I'm just not fully convinced that it's a bearing issue, only because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.